Excellent, and welcome to the TADSummit online conference. We have a new guest, Dmitry. He's going to be covering a number of telecom cybersecurity issues. And of course, we have old hands of Bodan and Aaron. So welcome everybody. And Dmitry, please provide an introduction.
Hi guys, thank you for inviting me first of all. I
You're
hope this
welcome.
will be interesting for your audience. I'm not sure if it is more technical or business audience, but anyway, I will try to do, let's say, my best to be, yeah, interesting to these people. Yeah, my name is Dmitry. I'm the Chief Technical Officer at Security Gen. We are the telecom cybersecurity company. We do automation, we do offensive testing. So my world is pretty much around providing security and testing for mobile network operators. So I think this is pretty much your ecosystem.
Yep.
Let's discuss what's happening there.
Exactly. Thank you. So that's a great introduction. So I think on the agenda that we kicked out from this, we mentioned what happened with SKT. So just interested in your perspective on how that came about, and what are the steps to protect other carriers from a similar fate.
The SK Telecom,
Yeah.
right? First announced in April, I think, this year, or
Yes.
maybe later in May. The thing is that, once again, I believe all of you have followed what was the latest in the news. What we know so far, I guess, is pretty much the common knowledge. It's like the breach has happened via the compromised VPN
Yes.
server or VPN concentrator. And then slowly but steadily, using the lateral movement techniques, hackers got themselves into the crown jewels, right? So they got access to the HSS.
Yes.
Actually, in simple words, this is the database with information about all the subscribers. So
Yes.
it's like IMSI, key material, pretty much all you need to know in order to replicate all the subscriber SIM cards, if
Yes.
you wish, right? So uh, but once again, there were many ideas and suggestions about what were the specifically malware in use and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
It's it seems like the entrance vector was more like IT related because maybe
Yes.
hackers they were exploiting the interfaces originally established for maybe remote contractors, maybe just the engineering
Yeah.
type of the access.
Yeah.
And then maybe, once again, maybe they were roaming around in the, I don't know, CRM system in the enterprise network, and then they switched off to the telecom domain.
Yeah.
This is, we are unaware of this. If you go to the brass tacks, okay, the breach has happened. And finally, the impact was that uh, likely the security operations center team, they spotted that the HSS database is actually exfiltrated.
Yes.
So they need to stop it to, let's say, isolate.
Yeah.
And this is how it slowly get to the news. Once again, likely because they were in charge to report this to the local regulator. How not to fall this victim of the similar type of attack? Wow, it's like kind of a lecture for maybe 7 days at least. But
Yes.
yeah, let's discuss it step by step.
But it's very
Dmitry,
interesting. Oh, go for it. Go for it,
I'm
Aaron.
just going to ask. My strength is not in telecom. I have a background in it, but it's not my strength. Are there not requirements for PII to be encrypted at rest?
It should be, in general, it should be, but with my own eyes, I've seen systems when it is
Oh,
encrypted and none of the engineering access they allow to get access there. At the same time, I've seen systems where it's all plain text.
yeah.
So maybe by default, and according to, I don't know, yeah, for GPP specification, according to the best practices, or maybe even some regulational policies, it should be. But what we have at the paper, the
Yeah.
blueprint, and what we have in the real life, it can be wildly different. You know this, right? So
Exactly,
Yes, absolutely.
exactly. And this remote contractor access, especially in like Industry 4.0, is a major source of hacks into big manufacturing plants. It's, it'll be like some, old DSL modem that's been there since the, sort of 1990s, sort of 2000. And again, it's people because people is the weakest asset. they discover it and then it gives them access. And as you said, sideways movement from there to basically get access to the crown jewels, which is, of course, as you say, the HSS, because that contains everything you need to run your telco. So,
Exactly, exactly.
and as you
And
say,
this actually get us to the topic of the supply chain security, because once again, in
exactly.
telecom world, many organizations, they tend to outsource a lot of, let's say, functionality
Yes,
outside to the vendors, to the system integrators. And the interesting topic that we see the trend in the cybersecurity industry, for instance, that the market of cybersecurity services grow a little bit faster compared to the product market. And
correct.
these are the managed security service providers. So these are the folks who's supposed to be your extension arm to do
Yeah,
security monitoring, maybe testing, maybe analytics, maybe even incident response. And
yes.
sometimes these suppliers to whom you outsource some of the, let's say, activities that you do not have sufficient skill set
Yeah,
in-house, they may be not even equally protected themselves. So they will
correct.
be the entrance door. So they're
Yes,
compromised, immediately you are compromised. This is the
exactly.
interesting one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's a big thing in telecoms because telecoms outsources a lot of
A lot.
non-core functionality. I mean, we see it in, for example, messaging, where a carrier will use third parties to do a lot of the messaging services. And for them, they tend to be smaller companies. Also, it's not necessarily their core in terms of cybersecurity, but for any large corporation, cybersecurity is key. It has to be a core function. Now, that's not, I mean, you'll have third parties, absolutely, for certain specializations, but within your employ, you need to have the experts to protect your customers. Because let's face it, it's going to take months for the SIMs to be replaced. I can't remember the because Bodan, you were sharing how long it's going to take to replace all the SIMs. I think it was like over a year.
Yes, Alan, they announced that possibly they can physically replace like around 6 million SIM cards, only maybe additional few millions in June,
Yeah,
but they didn't explain why it's so long.
yeah,
Hmm.
The good question, why I mean South Korea it was like one of the strongest mobile operators uh, region,
mhm,
let's say. I can compare the same like China,
yeah,
uh, fully covered and protected. Why they didn't predict it and didn't analyze attack in the face. I believe that Aaron can share about attack in the face, audit, all this stuff better
mhm,
with his experience. But even with all those SS7 signaling technology that now super popular in messaging and
yes,
they use this technology from voice
mhm,
more than 20 years. So it's their fault, not government, not
yes,
customers, all responsibility on mobile operators. And they must cover all losses, especially for the database of subscribers. I mean,
yeah,
real SIM cards owners. In some countries, it's impossible to buy SIM card without registering it on your ID,
yes,
like a passport or
exactly. Yep,
social security number.
yep,
Unfortunately, in many countries, it's still very easy to buy any SIM cards without any documents.
correct.
You
Absolutely.
know, the interesting thing is why SK Telecom they decided to reissue all the physical SIM cards, because South Korea in general quite developed country
Yep,
in terms of the smartphones penetration. Samsung is there, right? So they should
yeah,
have the chips for eSIM. So why
yes,
not to actually issue the eSIMs just to replace this? One of the possible solutions, right? And
yeah,
still they insisted like, okay, so suppliers can ship us only 6 million. We have 22 that we need, so there will be a gap. Like
But
this, there could be
how
some balance, right?
yep. It does.
how update their infrastructure may be current, but the users may have old phones and may have legacy hardware. in which case they can't support an eSIM.
Yeah,
Maybe, but once
I
again,
agree with
yeah.
Aaron. I know some good people, they don't want even to try eSIM. They don't
Yeah.
trust this new technology. They prefer to use old physical SIM card to get full access, and they don't trust. That's the reason why they still use old SIM cards.
Or if
Yeah.
you
And same
travel,
with IoT devices.
Hmm.
if you travel internationally, having a replaceable physical SIM card is really nice.
Yeah, I
But
mean, but
But
even for
I
travel,
don't
we're
think
seeing
eSIM is
that's
even better.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're seeing eSIM for the travel as cases. So it just acts like a phone, and it's just a software update, a local SIM. Sorry, so where you're getting the great rates, but maybe so maybe we take a step forward beyond the SKT because, and you've mentioned it, Bodan. Yes, there's SS7, but there's other platforms that carriers are using as well. Diameter, GTP. So there's a number of, what have been, rumored and proven hacks over these, and provide basically access for many. I mean, some it's school kids, going to particular fora and then discovering, but there are malicious actors, at least, sowing the seeds of future hacks. So I'm just interested, Dmitry, on how open are these telco networks at the moment? Is it one of these that you can get access easy? It's just people aren't,
Mhm.
of all the money they can make, doing the telco thing, risks are too high. It's not, returns are sort of not potentially significant enough. Just interested in your views on how can carriers protect their citizens.
Sure, sure. Well, you know about SS7, right? This is
Yeah,
very old type of the technology. It started with the fixed telephony back into, I don't know, 70s or something,
70s,
maybe
yes.
early 80s. Yeah. Then it was converted to support the mobility and all that stuff for the
Yeah,
early GSM systems. Once again, it's how to say it? It's legacy by design. It's
yeah,
not legacy by the threat model. It's quite open,
yeah.
supposed to be used in a trusted environment.
Correct. Yeah,
And then when Diameter was developed, actually to substitute the same type of functionality, but for the LTE generation,
correct. Yeah,
many things were introduced, right? Like authentication, authorization, and proper stuff. At the same time, we see the Diameter and GTP networks, which are used mainly for the LTE networks today.
yeah.
But this is also the core, let's say, for majority of the 5G roaming today, because there is
Correct.
almost no standalone 5G roaming as of now,
Yeah,
2025. The thing is that right now the trust model, which is supposed to be in the IPX, GRX networks,
yes,
is broken. Is
yes,
broken. So and fixing it, it's hard because the ecosystem is quite wide. We have multiple MNOs, fixed telephony, MVNOs, different value-added service providers. It used to be a small type of the walled garden, as I
yeah,
heard someone called it.
yeah.
Right now, it's not equal to the ease of access of the internet, of course,
No,
but still quite exposed.
yeah,
And speaking about how many MNOs, they all of them they do have access to this infrastructure, right?
yeah.
Now, is it hard to exploit one of the MNO, and this is will be the entrance door to get access to the IPX? This is exactly what we've seen in the case of Liminal Panda. I
Oh,
think
yes.
early 2024, CrowdStrike they published the threat intelligence report about the Liminal Panda
Yeah,
being the threat actors, active mainly in Middle East region, maybe Southeast Asia,
yeah,
and they were exactly continuing lateral movement from one compromised network to another using GTP as the entrance door because the
gotcha.
protection on this border is very, very weak.
Yeah,
And in our daily routine, we conduct a lot of offensive testing. So we are actually white hat hackers.
yep,
We position ourselves as the external bad actors trying to get insight into the customer network when they hire us to do so, right? I must say that Diameter and GTP specifically, is one of the less protected. because this border is like it's full IP pipe, right?
Yeah.
Inside there are some control plane protocols. Also, a lot of data is coming in,
Yeah.
and very less of filtering. So it's actually you can expect GTP interfaces to be open for the GTPC, GTPU type of a traffic, right?
Yeah.
For the control communication and for tunneling. At the same time, all the DNS traffic is allowed. And sometimes you can see exposed SSH ports for management. It's nonsense, right? It shouldn't be
Wow.
there. So it's quite open. It's quite open. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much in another situation. I think we've been doing the incident investigation, and we spotted that SS7 was actually used not to compromise the network. The network was lightly compromised by the IT type of the
Oh, okay.
vectors, but SS7 was used to exfiltrate data because
Gotcha.
it wasn't monitored at all. So this was the way to tunnel the traffic back to the another network, likely also
Yeah.
compromised to the C2 servers. So to say that this, let's say, ecosystem of the IP access and all that stuff is protected, not really.
Gotcha.
And situation is getting better, but at the same time, too many MNOs, they're still exposed.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they're aware about this frontier that they need to take care of.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because it's taking advantage of, as you say, the sort of IT and the telecom piece. So you use basically some of the, if you say, open the door, get the door ajar, from the IT plane, and then once you're using that, you then move sideways over into the more traditional telco piece to then extract all the data to another compromised network where you can then put it on your own servers and then go to town in spamming and all the fraud that we see today. It's like today I had a number of robocalls come through, and that I don't know why, but that here in the US they keep leaving voice messages. It's nonsense. It's from the fraud department, with no brand assigned. But
No pun intended.
Because they know there's going to be a boomer getting the voice message and then thinking, "Oh, my life savings," and then calling back. I have to be, just personally, it's like just don't answer the phone, don't listen to your voice messages. It's if you want to contact me, this other, I have to be honest. Gmail is great. Don't see any of the spam. It's all in a folder, and all that gumph I never look at. It's the times it breaks through is so small compared to the daily occurrences of calls and messages falling on my phone. But anyway, that's a side rant. So that's
Alan?
go for it.
I don't want to be that guy, but how much of this has been attributed to political leanings and motivations? I mean, two things. One is the physical location, but two is, in my experience, a lot of people are using their phones for payment, for identification, for verification.
Yes.
And if you don't have to worry about hacking MFA when you have the MFA device. I mean, how much of this, if any, needs to be looked at from what is the motivation of the attack?
Yes.
And if that's not the topic for today,
I can share a few notes that I prepared, Aaron. So the most popular things, why do they use this SMS hacking, right? Not only S7, but everything. For example, celebrity phones. They under attacks and they redirect SMSs, calls, bank account drainings. Same with crypto. You can see what happened with Coinbase. And Binance now under attack everywhere.
Yes.
Every country where is the Binance, it's under attack. Then they use it for corporate espionage. And we already discussed with Alan on our previous podcast about state-sponsored groups. So even carriers that they do this business, like exchanging of traffic, The real business, it's totally different. It's a kind of penetration testing, but what they really do, they receive some funding from some states, and they do this espionage. Then yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. Another interesting case we noticed in 2023, 2024 in Northern Africa, there was massive interception of OTP SMSs, texts, right? And
Yeah.
OTP calls as well. You
Yeah.
know what was the objective? To register fake WhatsApp and Telegram accounts. So massive amount of text messages and OTP calls were intercepted, like almost like up to the extent of hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
per 3 hours. And the same amount of fake, not fake, it's like actually
Yeah.
quite real Telegram and WhatsApp accounts registered on these platforms, and they can be used for which other purposes. They can be part of the botnet, they can join different channels, once again, try to influence the opinion, or maybe participate in some scams, or they can be just sold as the kind of new souls joining different WhatsApp and Telegram channels.
Exactly.
So a lot of misuse. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's also a lot of talk recently about remote hiring North Korean agents. Okay, I hope this doesn't come off as a racist statement, but the difference between a North Korean and a South Korean, to me, in my ignorance, I'm not going to be able to tell the difference. I'm just not. So if you get this person on the phone, if you have an ID that they send me with all their information, I'm not probably going to be able to differentiate one from another. And it kind of, all these things just keep brewing into a perfect storm. And if I have 23 million IDs, I'm going to start getting my people hired. And major defense contractors and major public held companies and utilities. And I'm probably going to push a technology or security role, and I'm going to be great for it. Trust me. As long as I remember my birthday. That's how they got one of the guys. They said everyone got together and said, "Hey, happy birthday." And he's like, "It's not my birthday. Why you wish me?" And HR was like,
Interesting.
This is something suspicious, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, Bodo.
No,
No,
worries,
that was
that's
good.
fine. So I didn't finish with this flooding. So when they use bulk SMS campaigns, they call it bulk, even from sender ID spoofing from some enterprises, like one of example, now they use Viber sender
Yes.
ID,
Yeah.
and they promote this Viber channel for spam, for sending phishing, spam, everything. Same with others like WhatsApp and others. So what's this flooding? When they flood, the result is denial of the service, and victims, they cannot receive security alerts.
Yes.
So when they attack the SIM cards, then victims will not receive notifications from their bank applications,
Yeah.
from anything.
Interesting.
Then, with this redirection, phone numbers hijacked, all incoming SMSs and calls rerouted
Yeah.
to attackers' devices. They can read, they can receive calls, everything.
Yeah.
The result will be equal to SIM swapping, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, correct. And then location tracking. It's also interesting. So it's possible to locate where is the device in real time. Very easy with one SMS. Can you imagine you receive spam SMS and they know where are you exactly? They can track you.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the thing that came there is, we have, the industry is pushing SIM swap API, but again, the hackers are moving at the speed of thought, and they're implementing mechanisms whereby, SIM swap API doesn't matter. They can still get access through a number of methods. But moving back to 5G, Now, 5G promised a lot and delivered, well, 2x on what we are already experiencing on 4G. And, as Bodan's country has shown, 4G is perfectly good for bombing other countries. we won't go there. Now, I'm interested, Dmitry, focusing in on where 5G is today. Has it tightened security for carriers, or is the situation just the same as it was before 5G?
And faster.
No, situation definitely not the same. It's not the same, sure,
Yeah.
because there are massive security upgrades and they are real. The only thing is that a lot of them, they're still on the paper because, as you guys know, there are multiple benefits of the 5G, but it's only will come if it is properly deployed,
Fully,
configured, and maintained, right? And now, for instance, a lot of, I'm not saying the majority, maybe right now it's not majority, but a lot of 5G rollouts, they're non-standalone. So basically working on the top of the evolved packet core, which is the LTE core. So basically it put the equal sign between the protection level. So if you work on the LTE core, then your level of protection cannot, let's say, be better than in LTE network by default.
Understood.
And yeah, this is quite so. All the, let's say, 5G correlated vulnerabilities right now directly tied to the 5G networks. So the same, let's say, exploitations that we can think of in the LTE network, like traffic interception, denial of service, and all that stuff, pretty much applicable to the 5G.
Gotcha.
Another thing is that the 5G standalone itself can be easily misconfigured, right?
Yes.
So for GPP, they introduced this approach of the service-based architecture. They withdraw all these GDP diameter protocols. They introduced this PFCP and HTTP version 2 for the network functions to communicate internally using the encryption and all that stuff. We've done maybe about a couple of dozens of security audit of the 5G standalone core networks already. You know what's the percentage of the deployed encryption in place? It's like less than 20%. The rest are still working clear text inside the network because it's considered like, okay, this is core, it's internal, we don't need encryption. In some of the cases when encryption was in place, the TLS certificate was outdated and were not actually connected to the root directory. It was still possible actually to do the all good SSL stripping attack, and the hacker can actually read and write. Now imagine, it was back in SS7 days, you need to have some kind of the, I don't know, skills of the good telecom engineer to try to exploit these protocols. When it is HTTP version 2, you take the Metasploit. This is the framework for penetration testing. You have all the burp suite, all the tools required to hack this type of technologies, which were originally designed for the web application testing. Right now, you use the same tool set and you can apply to the 5G core. It's brilliant. It's lower the threshold for the hackers dramatically. So I would say the bottom line is that 5G can definitely be much more secure. But the question is, if it is actually the reality of today, not yet. Not yet.
Gotcha. That's frightening. That really is, because it's just...
It shouldn't be frightening. It's like it's more like promising. We've been in a very, how to say it, unprotected position. We have some options to be better positioned in the future. So it's not yet, how to say it, we haven't yet utilized this, let's say.
Exactly. But as you say, you're enabling the community of people that can use tools they're familiar with from the internet domain. Now they can apply them directly within, a domain that is always supposed that everybody in that domain are, fellow telcos or vendors of telcos and play by, good guy rules. And you can't assume that anymore. But
zero trust.
Yes, it has to be.
Zero trust.
Zero
it has
trust
to be.
is core. And again, from the internet, you have to make those assumptions. And we keep, hitting those issues time and time again. So, this is very insightful conversation. I'm really glad we've got your three minds together to discuss around this. So I'm interested, Dmitry, given all the pen testing you've been doing, you've already hinted that, guys, you've just got to implement. You've got to put the certificates in. They've got to be current. It's implementing, not just, on a 5G core, it has to be standalone in the core, not just a sort of access piece that's faster. What steps should carriers take to better protect themselves?
Can we just
Well,
say,
Go for it.
we're talking about telecom carriers, which I
Yes.
think is excellent. However, this leads to a greater issue, which is if you have an IP address,
Yes.
you're vulnerable. So
Yes.
it's not just the telecoms, it's all the IT/OT, it's all the
Yes.
SCADA, ICS, it's all the internet technology,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's everywhere. And the fact that these things keep happening and that organizations, huge multi-billion-dollar organizations,
Correct.
they have to be somewhat aware that this is going on.
Yes.
So it gets to a point for me personally, it's very frustrating to have an organization go, oh, it's 2024, it's June. Oh, we got our database breached and we just left it as plain text.
Yeah.
Like that's got to be, at some point, there's got to be consequences for that because that's not like a very rare high level framework requirement. That's
No.
like a
Basic
ubiquitous
hygiene.
framework
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
the fact is, it's going to happen in telecom. It's going to happen in industrial components. It's going to happen in pretty much every organization, every business. And the thing that I don't get is every time I hear in the US there's another hospital breach,
Yes.
I always go in my head goes, where's the backup? How do you run a mission critical, literally life altering organization that doesn't even have a recent backup? Like criminals be damned. What if there's an earthquake? What if there's
Yeah.
something takes your systems offline? Are you done? You can't help people in a hospital anymore? It just it
Well,
and
that's
I
the
know I'm
meta
preaching to the
problem.
choir.
Again, no. But I think that's part two of the question. I think let's focus within the domain that telecoms basically has a degree of control, and what are the steps we can do. But then, and I think this has come strongly through this conversation we've had, each plane, once hacked, enables a sideways move. So, again, the OT or the IT then enables that move into the telecoms domain. So let's put the multi-plane attacks to part two of the question. But I'm just interested, Dmitry, from your perspective, on what are basic steps we need to take to just. Hacking's going to continue. It's not going to stop because they're moving at the speed of thought. They're always finding new methods, but just to limit the exposure that we see almost every month, there's again a new alert and something's been lost.
You're right. Unfortunately, the answer would be a little bit obvious, maybe. Security must be first prioritized somewhere at the business level.
Yes.
Because if there is no security at the board level priority, there won't be budget,
Yes.
ownership, urgency, nothing like this.
Yeah.
So
It's good we
the main
have to
driver.
keep restating it. You need, fire your chief transformation officer as a telco. They've done nothing. They've added no value to your organization, and make it your
Exactly.
chief security officer. And not digital. Please don't say the word digital and security. Security across all planes within the organization.
Exactly. And the next step would be about actually fixing people and processes layer, because it all boils down to people who will design, plan, execute. Right now, there is, with the hype around AI, there is over-reliance that it will resolve all the possible issues.
Yeah.
In reality, once again, it's better to think about this as a very good tool and assistant.
Yeah.
But first of all, we need to educate our teams. We need to have the proper experience, hands-on exercises, so that people know what they're doing, right?
Exactly.
And
basic traceability. I mean, it's like, well, we use these, we trained it on this data. Whose data? Which customer's data has been exposed through this? Because again, there's just a lack of traceability on those type of things. But anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No, I was just continuing this logic about the trained people, proper processes, And then when it is defined, you can actually think about the better tools, better configuration, and the rest of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because majority of the lessons that we learned show us that likely there was some certification, best practices in place, but this is related to some hardcore maybe functionality of the products. If the process is all over the place, it won't help us because hackers, they will try to exploit the weaknesses
Yes.
where the certification isn't really covering. And this is always about, human mistakes, misconfigurations, sometimes maybe stupidity will not require it, right? So we will do our mistakes our own. So
Yeah.
this is the reality. So
And it
being
is,
smart, being smart and proactive, because otherwise we will be always only focusing on the let's say protection when the incident is happening, and
yes.
this is not the right approach at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's very good. Taking it back to people and process. It's always stop.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, because there's the three: people, process, product. But it's like, guys, stop over investing in the product and actually make sure that the people and process are as basically, secure, as sort of certified, as protected as the product itself. And then this, Aaron, is going back to your part two question. Because what Dimitri's showing is you have to do a whole system. It's not just by vertical, it is across. Because as soon as you start talking about people and process, it's beyond one particular domain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you see this, I think it's across industry,
Yes.
across technology,
Yes.
across device, across environment. I preach in the choir again, but it's frustrating when you hear things like a bank in the US was attacked.
Yeah.
They managed to exfiltrate some data, do some bad things. They brought in an outside professional team, which I commend them for. Bring in expertise. If you don't have it
Yes.
in-house, bring it in.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. You're a bank. You hopefully have the ability to pay for this. That spend about 4 to 6 months, going through, looking at the recommendations, understanding what needed to change, but never making the changes. And then, less than a year later, they got attacked again. Same method.
Mhm.
And so you got to question why.
Mhm.
If you're paying and taking the time and making the commitment, we're going to be more secure. We know this is bad if this happens.
Yes.
We're willing to put our money and our time behind it, and then not integrate that into ongoing process, not integrating that into,
Exactly.
secure DevOps, and making the
Yeah.
same mistake twice, and then, oh, I don't know how it happened. It is incredibly frustrating to me.
Well,
I mean, literally the same
somebody to
attack.
blame. It has to be at
Right.
board level that has budget authority. And when that happens again, you failed. And then depending on the failure, you could go through a series of kicking out your chief security officer, but hopefully you give, like, okay, you learn from this problem, issue.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it's
and
like
and
actually
I
about quitting from the checkbox approach to actually
Yes.
dynamic
Yes.
security, because this is the dynamic and continuous process. When it
Gotcha.
is a
Absolutely.
checkbox, it will be the same checkbox every year, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Exactly.
Or they'll just say, just use the same answers from last year because nothing in our environment changed. Yeah. So I agree with you though. I've gone into environments and I've said, we have to have the CEO in this meeting. We have to have the chief information officer, data officer, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to attend, I'm
Then
walking away.
Yeah.
Because you're setting everybody up to fail. You're going to spend a lot of money. And who are you going to blame? The outside person, right?
Of course.
It's your
It's
fault.
easiest. Yeah. 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 You
I
told
don't
us what to
want
do and we didn't do it. It's your fault.
Right. It's your fault. Right. Exactly.
Cool.
Story of my life.
No,
Story of
this
my
is
life.
great between the concurrence we're seeing between each of your perspectives. Even though you're coming from quite different industries. So, Dmitry, just to wrap up again, thank you for this discussion. It's really great, and
Very
just
good.
the resonance I'm seeing across all three of you. What would you, what would you like to leave the audience with? What's the one thing that they could do, or yeah, one thing that
Call Dmitry and get him in there.
yes, okay, I
Yeah,
know.
put
We'll
me
have
on
the
the
link
speed
to
dial.
we'll have the link to your LinkedIn profile. Don't worry, that will be there right at the start. But that one simple thing that could make a difference.
I would say that if it, once again, we almost finished the conversation on the human factor topic,
Yes.
right? But not being the human, the weakest link, but just the human being the person to decide and take the responsibility.
Yeah.
So I would say that the very important should be kind of the cultural shift when people in the organization, they have this approach when they say, hey, is this actually normal? Is this okay what I'm seeing right now? And this can be pretty much connected to the phishing email you receive or the monitoring you're doing and you see some suspicious activity, or maybe just a system integrator asking you to sign off the acceptance while you're not sure that all the security controls are actually verified.
Exactly.
Just ask yourself, is this okay to treat it this way? So
Exactly.
being a little bit more suspicious and smart. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, to have that suspicion, because you're trying to move security from that thing. It's a band-aid at the very end when somebody says, is this secure, to being right at the start in terms of it's a core design requirement before we even get to some of the systems discussions. So yeah, cool.
Exactly.
Thanks for that. And then Bodan,
I think it's
Aaron.
Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say I think we all agree it goes back to fundamentals.
Yeah.
You have to do the core basic minimum.
Yeah.
You have to have encryption. You have to have multi-factor authentication. You have to have processes in place that are just basic. It's
Yes.
like
Oh yeah.
Always. This is hygiene. So you cannot avoid this. So yeah.
But let's face it, in SIM-swap, it's $1,000 to get basically a telco employee to swap a SIM onto your device. That's it. And quite often, it's just brushed under the carpet. Oh yeah, you're fired. But basically, yeah, and they'd be making millions most probably up until the point where they were discovered and fired. And it's like, okay, no problem. I'll find a job elsewhere. Or in some cases that I've seen, they'd be making tens of millions, and it's like, okay, maybe it's time to buy that island and retire. But again, guys, thanks so much for this fun discussion. I didn't know where we were going to go on this. It was great insights, but I really love the concurrence I'm seeing across everybody on this discussion. This was really fun, insightful, and I'm sure we're going to have you back soon. So have a great rest of your week, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys. Thank you, John.